Rain drummed against the windows of the pediatric cardiac surgery ward at St. Mary's Hospital, creating a monotonous melody as Dr. Kang Min-ju finished her rounds. In her hands was the medical file of 7-year-old Kim So-yeon, a girl with a congenital heart defect who was scheduled for complex surgery the next morning. Min-ju was carefully studying the latest test results when her assistant, Park Ji-eun, knocked on her office door. Dr. Kang, a letter has arrived for you, she said, extending an envelope with no return address. Min-ju looked up from the medical charts. At 42, she was one of South Korea's most respected pediatric cardiac surgeons, but her perceptive gaze could still instantly assess the smallest details. The envelope was ordinary, but something about it seemed strange to her. "Who brought it?" she asked. "A courier. He said it was urgent and personal for you." Min-ju took the envelope and carefully opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a printed address: Sunset Nursing Home, Busan, 47, Marine Street. Ask for Lee Seung-ja, room 203. No explanation, no signature. Just an address and a name. Lee Seung-ja. This name was unfamiliar to her, but something deep inside responded to it, like a distant echo from a forgotten dream. Min-ju had known all her life that she was adopted. She was adopted at age 3 from the Hope Orphanage in the outskirts of Seoul. Her adoptive parents, the Dr. Kang Jin-woo and his wife Hyun-suk, loved her like their own daughter and never hid the fact of adoption. But when she asked about her biological parents, they only shook their heads and said that the orphanage records had been lost in a fire. Over the years, Min-ju had come to terms with never knowing her origins. She focused on her studies, became a doctor, specialized in pediatric cardiac surgery. Perhaps the choice of profession was not accidental. By saving children's hearts, she was subconsciously trying to heal the wound in her own soul. Now, holding the mysterious letter, she felt the old pain stirring again. "Ji-eun," she called to her assistant, "cancel my appointments for tomorrow after the surgery. I need to go to Busan." The next day, after successfully performing heart surgery on little So-yeon, Min-ju took the train to Busan. The journey took about 3 hours, and all this time she couldn't shake off an anxious premonition. The Sunset Nursing Home turned out to be an old but well-maintained building near the coast. The administrator, an elderly woman with kind eyes, met Min-ju in the lobby. "Are you here for Lee Seung-ja?" she asked when Min-ju introduced herself. "She hasn't seen anyone for a long time. She has dementia, you know. Most of the time she doesn't even recognize the nurses." "I'd still like to see her," Min-ju insisted. Room 203 was on the second floor. Min-ju knocked and entered. By the window in a chair sat a thin woman of about 70 with gray hair gathered in a neat bun. She was looking out the window at the sea, and her eyes seemed absent. "Mrs. Lee," Min-ju called cautiously. The woman slowly turned her head. For a moment her gaze focused on Min-ju's face, and something like recognition flashed in her eyes. "Min-ju," she whispered in a trembling voice. "Min-ju, is it really you?" Min-ju's heart beat faster. This woman knew her name. "Yes, it's me." "And you? Who are you?" Lee Seung-ja extended a trembling hand and touched Min-ju's cheek. "My girl," she whispered, and tears flowed down her wrinkled cheeks. "You've grown so beautiful. So strong. Are you my mother?" Min-ju's voice broke with emotion. The old woman nodded, still holding her face in her palms. "I searched for you all my life," she continued, and for a moment her consciousness cleared completely. "But I knew I shouldn't. It was too dangerous. For you. For both of us." "Dangerous? Why?" Lee Seung-ja's eyes suddenly filled with horror, as if she remembered something terrible. "You weren't supposed to survive," she whispered, gripping her daughter's hands tightly. "That night at the orphanage, something terrible happened." "What night? What are you talking about?" But the clarity in her mother's eyes was already fading. She turned back to the window, and her gaze became absent again. Mom, Min-ju knelt beside the chair. Please, tell me. What happened at the orphanage? But Lee Seung-ja no longer answered. She quietly hummed some lullaby, rocking in her chair. Min-ju spent another hour in the room, hoping her mother would come to her senses again, but the old woman had sunk into her foggy world of dementia. Returning to Seoul late in the evening, Min-ju couldn't sleep. Her mother's words echoed in her head like an incantation. You weren't supposed to survive. That night at the orphanage something terrible happened. The next morning, having barely finished her morning rounds, she went to the hospital archives. If her adoptive father Dr. Kang Jin-woo was hiding something about her past, perhaps clues could be found in his personal documents. The archivist, an elderly man named Lee Suk-min, knew the Kang family well. Dr. Kang was an outstanding pediatrician, he said, taking out a box of documents. He and his wife couldn't have children for a long time, and then suddenly adopted you. I remember how he rejoiced. Min-ju looked through the documents, medical reports, certificates, letters, and suddenly came across a folder labeled Min-ju, Medical Records 1983 to 1986. Inside were her childhood medical charts, but not ordinary ones. The records were very detailed, with test results that are usually not done on 3-year-old children. Blood tests for hormones, pelvic ultrasounds, even menstrual cycle records, though at 3 she couldn't have had one. What is this? She muttered, studying the strange records. At the end of the folder lay a letter written in her adoptive father's hand. It was dated October 15, 1983, a month after her adoption. Dear colleague Park, the girl's medical condition has stabilized. Traces of experimental exposure have practically disappeared. Hormone levels are normal. I think we managed to hide the consequences. She remembers nothing, which is not surprising at her age. Please destroy all documents related to Project Hope. What happened at the orphanage must remain in the past. Respectfully, Kang Jin-woo. Min-ju's hands trembled as she reread the letter. Traces of experimental exposure? Project Hope? What experiments were being conducted on children at the orphanage? Mr. Lee, she addressed the archivist, are there documents from Dr. Park here? The one this letter was addressed to? Suk-min frowned. Dr. Park Jong-soo? He worked here until 1985, then suddenly quit. They said he moved abroad. His documents. He thought, I think they were taken from the archives about 10 years ago. By official request. Who took them? I don't remember exactly. Some government organization. Min-ju made copies of all the documents and went home. She needed time to think about the information she had found. At home, Min-ju sat at her computer and began searching the internet. Hope Orphanage Plus 1983 yielded several results, but all links led to inaccessible pages or archive sites that no longer worked. She tried a different approach, began searching for information about other children from the orphanage. Her adoption documents mentioned the names of several girls who were there at the same time. First she found Cho Mi-yeon. According to social media data, Mi-yeon worked as a teacher in Incheon. Min-ju wrote down her phone number and called. Hello, a woman's voice answered. Hello, this is Dr. Kang Min-ju. I'm looking for Cho Mi-yeon, who was in the Hope Orphanage as a child. A long pause. That's me. But how do you know about the orphanage? I was there too. We need to meet. The next day Min-ju went to Incheon. Mi-yeon turned out to be a woman her age, but looked older. She was thin, pale, with an anxious look. They met in a small cafe near the school where Mi-yeon worked. I don't like remembering those times, Mi-yeon said, nervously rotating her coffee cup. After the orphanage I had many health problems. What kind of problems? Hormonal disorders. Infertility. Doctors can't understand the cause. They say my body is as if it was subjected to some chemical exposure in childhood. Min-ju's heart clenched. This coincided with what she had read in her medical charts. Mi-yeon, do you remember anything strange from the orphanage? Medical procedures, injections, tests? Mi-yeon paled even more. Why are you asking? Because I suspect that something was done to us. Experiments. I don't want to talk about it. Mi-yeon stood up from the table. Forget about the orphanage. Forget about that time. It's dangerous. Dangerous? What do you mean? But Mi-yeon was already heading for the exit. At the door she turned around. Park So-yeon died last year. Ovarian cancer at 39. And Kim Hye-jin killed herself 5 years ago. All the girls from our group are either sick or dead. Don't dig into the past, Dr. Kang. Some secrets are better not known. Returning to Seoul, Min-ju was shocked by Mi-yeon's words. She spent the evening searching for information about other girls from the orphanage. Park So-yeon died of ovarian cancer at 39. Kim Hye-jin, suicide at 37. Lee Ji-na, infertility, multiple hormonal disorders. Yoon Song-hee died of uterine cancer at 35. Of the 11 girls who were at the Hope Orphanage in 1980 to 1983, 4 died of women's diseases at a young age, 3 committed suicide, 3 suffered from infertility and hormonal disorders. And only Min-ju was relatively healthy. Why? She reread her adoptive father's letter. The girl's medical condition has stabilized. Traces of experimental exposure have practically disappeared. So she was treated. Unlike other girls, she was helped to cope with the consequences of what was done to her. But what exactly was done to them? And who was behind these experiments? The next day Min-ju decided to go to the place where the Hope Orphanage once stood. From old documents she found the address. It was in Seoul's suburbs, and an area now built up with office buildings. A modern business center now stood where the orphanage used to be. Min-ju walked around the neighborhood, asking old-timers. Most remembered nothing, but in a small shop she met an elderly man who told her an interesting story. "Oh, I remember that orphanage," he said. "It burned down in 1984. Terrible fire it was. They said someone deliberately set it. And what was before the fire? Did you notice anything strange?" The man thought. Strange cars often came. With government plates. And some doctors came, not local ones. And also, he lowered his voice, local residents complained about strange sounds at night. Children crying, screaming. But when someone tried to find out what was happening, the administration said everything was normal. Min-ju thanked him and went home with a heavy heart. The picture was becoming increasingly grim. That same evening, Min-ju received a call from an unknown number. "Dr. Kang," came an elderly male voice. "My name is Park Jang-soo. I heard you're looking for information about the Hope Orphanage." Min-ju almost dropped the phone. Dr. Park, the very one to whom her adoptive father's letter was addressed. Dr. Park? Where are you? I need to meet with you. It's dangerous. But I understand you have the right to know the truth. Let's meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. in Hangang Park, at Maple Bridge. Come alone. The next day Min-ju came to the meeting place. Dr. Park turned out to be a man of about 70, with gray hair and a tired face. He nervously looked around. "I shouldn't have met with you," he said. "But when I learned you had started an investigation, my conscience has been troubling me for 40 years. Tell me the truth about the orphanage." Park sighed deeply. Hope wasn't just an orphanage. It was a cover for secret medical experiments. The project was funded by a large pharmaceutical company with government support. What experiments? Research on the effects of various hormonal drugs on the development of the female reproductive system. Children were used as test animals. They were given experimental drugs, and their bodies' reactions were observed. Min-ju felt nauseous. And you participated in this? I was a young doctor. I was told this would help treat infertility in the future. That we were saving humanity. But gradually I realized that children were simply being crippled. Many died. Others received irreversible damage. And what happened to my mother? Lee Seung-ja? Seung-ja worked as a nurse at the orphanage. She was the only one who tried to protect the children. She stole medications to neutralize the effects of experimental drugs. Thanks to her, several girls survived, including you. Why didn't she stop the experiments? She tried. But she was warned that if she spoke up, they would kill both her and you. So she remained silent and did everything possible to minimize the harm. And what happened that night she talked about? Dr. Park's face contorted with pain. September 15, 1983. Seung-ja couldn't take it anymore. She decided to go to the prosecutor's office, gathered evidence. But her plans were discovered. That night, men in civilian clothes came to the orphanage. They wanted to eliminate all witnesses, both children and Seung-ja. And what happened? Seung-ja set fire to the document warehouse to destroy the evidence. In the chaos, she managed to carry several children out of the building, including you. But the fire spread to the entire building. Many died. And then? Seung-ja ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Officially, due to shock from the fire. In reality, to force her to remain silent. The project was shut down, all participants were sent to different countries or forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. Min-ju sat in shock, trying to comprehend what she had heard. Who was behind all this? The pharmaceutical company Korea Bio. It was called something else then, but the principle is the same. And now it's one of the largest companies in the country. Do you have evidence? Dr. Park took a folder from his bag. I saved some documents. I understood that someday they might be needed. But be careful, Dr. Kang. These people won't stop at murder to protect their secrets. At home, Min-ju studied the documents Dr. Park had given her. These were medical reports, lists of experimental drugs, financial documents linking the project to the pharmaceutical company. Everything fit together. Children were indeed used to test hormonal drugs, many of which turned out to be toxic and carcinogenic. That's why so many girls from the orphanage died of cancer at a young age. Min-ju realized she couldn't just forget about this. Too many people had suffered. Too many children had died. She had to achieve justice. The next day she contacted her acquaintance, journalist Kim Tae-hyun, who specialized in investigating corruption schemes. This is serious, he said, reviewing the documents. But I need more evidence. And preferably living witnesses. Would Dr. Park agree to testify? I doubt it. Such people are usually intimidated or bought. And your biological mother? She has dementia. Her testimony won't be taken seriously. Then we need other sources. Maybe among the surviving children someone remembers more? Min-ju remembered Mi-yeon, who was panically afraid to talk about the past. Perhaps she knew more than she was saying. She went to Incheon again, but Mi-yeon's house was empty. A neighbor said she had gone to relatives and didn't say when she would return. At the school where Mi-yeon worked, the principal looked concerned. Cho Mi-yeon submitted her resignation 3 days ago, he said. Very strange. She never spoke about wanting to leave. Min-ju realized that Mi-yeon was frightened by their conversation and had hidden. Or was forced to hide. Returning to Seoul, Min-ju tried to contact Dr. Park, but his phone didn't answer. She went to the address he had given her, but found an empty apartment. The tenant moved out 2 days ago, said the landlady. Was in a great hurry. Didn't even take back his deposit. Min-ju began to understand that someone was monitoring her investigation and making witnesses disappear. That same evening, when she returned home, an unpleasant surprise awaited her. The apartment had been searched. Professionally, carefully, but searched. All documents related to the orphanage had disappeared. Fortunately, Min-ju had been prudent and hidden copies in a bank safety deposit box. The next day at work, she was summoned by the chief physician of the hospital, Dr. Lee Sang-min. Min-ju, I've received complaints about your behavior, he said. They say you're harassing people, asking strange questions about some old stories. Who complained? It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's interfering with your work. I advise you to take a vacation. Rest. Get your thoughts in order. Min-ju understood that pressure on her was increasing. Fine, she said. I'll take a vacation. But she wasn't going to give up. Min-ju had one source of information left, her biological mother. Lee Seung-ja's dementia wasn't constant. There were moments when consciousness cleared. She went to Busan again, to the Sunset nursing home. This time she was prepared to wait as long as necessary. The nursing home administrator, Mrs. Choi, was understanding of her request. You can stay for a few days, she said. She has good days when memory returns. Usually this happens early in the morning or late in the evening. Min-ju rented a room at a hotel near the nursing home and began daily visits to her mother. For the first 3 days, Lee Seung-ja didn't recognize her. She sat by the window, humming lullabies, and it seemed her soul was somewhere far away. But on the 4th day, early in the morning, when Min-ju brought her breakfast, her mother's eyes suddenly became clear. Min-ju, she said distinctly. You came after all. Mom, Min-ju sat beside her on the bed. I need to know the truth about the orphanage. About what happened there. Lee Seung-ja closed her eyes, as if gathering strength. I knew this day would come, she whispered. For 40 years I remained silent, but now I have nothing to lose. She took her daughter's hand in her trembling palms. The Hope Orphanage was hell on earth, Min-ju. Terrible things were done to children there. Especially to girls. Tell me everything, Mom. I worked there as a nurse from 1980. At first I thought it was an ordinary orphanage. But gradually I realized something was wrong. Children were taken for medical procedures, and after that they became listless, sick. Many died. Lee Seung-ja's voice trembled with the pain of memories. It was all directed by Dr. Choi Min-ho. He said we were participating in revolutionary research that would help millions of women in the future. Children were given experimental hormonal drugs to study how they affected the development of the reproductive system. And you? Did you help them? At first, yes, her mother admitted, and tears flowed down her cheeks. I didn't understand what I was doing. But when I began to see how children suffered and died, I could no longer bear it. What did you do? I began secretly helping the children. I stole medications that could neutralize the effects of experimental drugs. I switched test results so doctors would think the experiments weren't working. I saved several girls, but not all. Lee Seung-ja wept. I couldn't save everyone, Min-ju. So many children died because of my inaction. Mom, you did everything you could. No. I should have acted earlier. Should have gone to the police, to the prosecutor's office. But I was afraid. What were you afraid of? Dr. Choi threatened to kill me and you if I spoke up. He said he had connections in the government, that no one would believe a simple nurse against a respected doctor. Min-ju squeezed her mother's hand. Tell me about that night. About the fire. September 15th, 1983, I couldn't take it anymore. I saw how little Hygiene died after another injection. She was only 4 years old. I decided I had to stop this madness, whatever happened to me. And what did you do? I gathered all the documents I could find. Medical records, contracts with the pharmaceutical company, financial reports. I planned to take them to the prosecutor's office the next day. But you were discovered? Dr. Choi learned of my plans. That night, men in black cars came to the orphanage. I realized they had come to eliminate all witnesses, both children and me. Lee Seung-ja's voice became barely audible. I knew I had only one chance to save at least some of the children. I set fire to the document warehouse, hoping that in the chaos I could get the children out of the building. And did you succeed? Partially. I saved 7 children, including you. But the others? She sobbed. The others died in the fire. What happened to you after the fire? I was arrested and placed in a psychiatric hospital. Officially, due to mental disorder caused by the tragedy. In reality, to force me to remain silent. I spent 15 years there. And me? You were adopted by Dr. Kang Min-ju. He was a good man, worked with Dr. Park. They tried to help children who survived the experiments. They treated them for the effects of poisoning. Why didn't you look for me after leaving the hospital? I tried. But I was told that if I appeared in your life, you would be killed. Dr. Choi was still alive and influential. I could only pray that you would grow up healthy and happy. Min-ju hugged her mother. Mom, is Dr. Choi still alive? I don't know. The last time I heard about him was about 10 years ago. Then he was chairman of the board of directors of the pharmaceutical company Korea Bio. The clarity of consciousness in Lee Seung-ja lasted another 2 hours, during which she told her daughter all the details she remembered. Names of doctors, addresses, dates, everything that could help in the investigation. When the fog of dementia again enveloped her mind, Min-ju knew she had received everything necessary. Returning to Seoul, she first checked information about Dr. Choi Min-ho. Indeed, he was chairman of the board of directors of Korea Bio until 2018, when he retired. Now he was 82 years old and lived in the elite Gangnam district. Min-ju understood that a direct appeal to him was useless. A different plan was needed. She contacted journalist Kim Tae-hyun. I have new information, she said. But I need your help. I'm listening. We need to find a way to force Dr. Choi to testify. Or at least admit his participation in the experiments. That's difficult. Such people are usually well protected legally. What if we had a recording of his confession? That would be ideal. But how do you plan to get it? Min-ju thought. She had a plan, risky, but possibly the only way to achieve justice. The next day Min-ju came to the office of Korea Bio Company and requested a meeting with Dr. Choi. The secretary said he no longer worked at the company, but Min-ju insisted. Tell him that Dr. Kang Min-ju wants to talk about the Hope Orphanage, she said. After half an hour, the secretary returned with a message that Dr. Choi agreed to meet, but only at his home. Min-ju understood this could be a trap, but there was no other way. She bought a small recorder and hid it in her bag. Dr. Choi's house turned out to be a luxurious mansion in Gangnam. The old man met her in his study, tall, gray-haired, with cold eyes. Dr. Kang, he said, not getting up from his desk. Daughter of my old colleague Kang Min-ju. I heard you became a famous cardiac surgeon. I want to talk to you about the Hope Orphanage. About what exactly? About the medical experiments that were conducted there. About the children who died. Dr. Choi smirked. I don't know what you're talking about. Hope was an ordinary orphanage. Unfortunately, it burned down as a result of an accident. An accident? You ordered the children killed to hide traces of the experiments. Prove it. I have a witness. Lee Seung-ja is alive. For the first time in the conversation, Dr. Choi's expression changed. Soonja? She's crazy. The testimony of a mentally ill person has no legal force. But documents do. I have medical records, financial reports, correspondence with the pharmaceutical company. Where did you get them? It doesn't matter. What matters is that soon the whole country will know about this. Dr. Choi stood up and approached the window. What do you want? Confession. Public apology to the families of the dead children. Compensation to the victims. And if I refuse? Then the story will become public knowledge. You'll be tried for murdering children. Dr. Choi turned to her. You don't understand who you're dealing with, Dr. Kang. Those experiments saved thousands of lives. The drugs we developed helped millions of women worldwide cope with infertility. At the cost of innocent children's lives. Sacrifices are inevitable in the name of progress. Those children were orphans, unwanted by anyone. We gave their deaths meaning. Min-ju couldn't believe what she was hearing. How can you say that? Easily. Because I'm a doctor, not a sentimental fool. I saved more lives than you can imagine. Hiding behind dead children. If you want. But the fact remains, our research revolutionized the treatment of female infertility. Dr. Choi sat back down at his desk. I'm not going to apologize for my work. And I'm not going to pay compensation. You have no evidence that would stand up in court. I have a recording of our conversation, Min-ju said, taking out the recorder. Dr. Choi's face paled. You recorded our conversation without my consent? That's illegal. But effective. No one will believe a secretly made recording. It won't pass in court. But it will pass in the press. Dr. Choi pressed a button on his desk. Within a minute, 2 men in dark suits entered the office. Escort Dr. Kang out, he said. And take the recorder from her. Min-ju realized she had fallen into a trap. But she was prepared for such a development. The recorder is here, she said, handing the device to one of the men. But the recording has already been sent to my journalist friend. If anything happens to me, it will become public knowledge. This was a lie, but Dr. Choi couldn't know that. Get out, he hissed through his teeth. And no, I have many friends in influential circles. If you try to publish this story, your career will be over. My career is not as important as justice for the dead children. Returning home, Min-ju actually sent the recording of the conversation to journalist Kim So-yeon. She also gave him all the documents she had received from Dr. Park and her mother. This is a sensation, So-yeon said after studying the materials. But I need time to check all the facts and find additional sources. How much time? 2 weeks minimum. Such stories require careful verification. These 2 weeks became a real test for Min-ju. She felt she was being watched. Several times she noticed the same car near her house and the hospital. At work, the atmosphere also changed. Colleagues began to treat her coldly, some openly avoided communication. Chief Physician Dr. Lee summoned her again. Min-ju, there are serious complaints about you, he said. They say you're harassing respected people, making false accusations. Are there specific claims against me? Not yet. But I recommend you be more careful. A doctor's reputation is the most important thing. Even more important than truth? Especially more important than truth that can't be proven. Min-ju understood that pressure was being put on her, trying to force her to abandon the investigation. Finally, after 3 weeks, Kim So-yeon published the investigation in Korea's largest newspaper. The story about medical experiments on children at the Hope Orphanage had the effect of an exploding bomb. That same day, Korea Bio Company issued an official statement denying any involvement in the described events. Dr. Choi gave an interview in which he called the publication slander by an unbalanced woman seeking fame. But public opinion was on Min-ju's side. Human rights organizations demanded an official investigation. The prosecutor's office was forced to open a criminal case. Other people who had suffered from medical experiments began contacting Min-ju. It turned out that similar projects were conducted not only at Hope, but also at other children's institutions throughout the country. One of those who contacted her was Yoon So-yeon, a 40-year-old woman who as a child was at an orphanage in Busan. They gave me strange injections, she told Min-ju. After them I was always sick. And at 16 I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Doctors said they had never seen anything like it in teenagers. Do you remember who conducted the experiments? Doctors came from Seoul. One of them was called Dr. Choi. This was another confirmation of Dr. Choi's guilt. The trial of Dr. Choi began 6 months after the article's publication. By then, the investigation had found several more witnesses and numerous documentary evidence. The defense tried to present Dr. Choi as an outstanding scientist whose research brought enormous benefit to humanity. But witness testimony and medical records spoke for themselves. Min-ju testified as both a victim and a medical expert. She explained to the court what harm the experimental drugs caused to children's bodies and why so many girls from the orphanage died young. The most dramatic moment of the trial was Lee Seung-ja's testimony. Despite her dementia, in the courtroom she had one of her rare moments of clarity. I saw children dying, she said in a trembling voice. I saw them crying after injections. And I couldn't do anything because I was afraid. Dr. Choi sat in the defendant's dock with a stone face, showing no emotion. The trial lasted 3 months. In the end, the court found Dr. Choi guilty of organizing illegal medical experiments that resulted in the death of minors. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Korea Bio Company was obligated to pay compensation to all victims and their families. After the trial, Min-ju's life changed dramatically. She left her position as department head and founded a nonprofit organization called Hope for Children, which helped orphans receive quality medical care and psychological support. Part of the compensation she received from Korea Bio went to building a specialized center for orphan girls. There they not only received medical care, but also education, psychological support, and help finding adoptive families. The center opened a year after the trial ended. The opening ceremony was attended by many journalists and public figures. We created this center in memory of children who couldn't protect themselves, Min-ju said in her speech. Every girl who receives help here is a small victory over those who thought children's lives were worthless. After the ceremony, a young woman of about 25 approached her. Dr. Kang, she said, my name is Lee Ji-eun. I was also at an orphanage where experiments were conducted. But not at Hope, but in Incheon. I would like to work at your center. What is your education? I'm a nurse. And I know what it's like to be a defenseless child in the hands of adults who think only of their own goals. Min-ju smiled. Welcome to the team. Another important change in Min-ju's life was her personal life. While working on the center, she met Dr. Park Jin-soo, a child psychologist who helped traumatized children cope with the consequences of abuse. Jin-soo was divorced, raising an 8-year-old son from his first marriage. He understood the importance of Min-ju's work and supported her in all her endeavors. You're not just saving children, he told her once. You're saving the future. Every child you help will grow up and make the world better. Their relationship developed slowly. Both were people who had suffered from life's trials, and they cautiously opened their hearts. 2 years after meeting, they married. The wedding was modest but joyful. It was attended by center staff, some of the girls Min-ju had helped, her adoptive parents, and her biological mother. Lee Seung-ja was in clear consciousness that day and was able to bless her daughter for family happiness. You found your destiny, she told Min-ju. You became what you were meant to be, a protector of children. A year after the wedding, Min-ju learned she was pregnant. This came as a complete surprise to her. Doctors had said that due to the consequences of childhood experiments, she would most likely not be able to have children. But modern medicine and the special treatment course she had undergone for the past 2 years had yielded results. Her body's hormonal balance had been restored, and the pregnancy was proceeding normally. "This is a miracle," gynecologist Dr. Kim told her. "Considering your medical history, the probability of a successful pregnancy was very low. Does this mean there's hope for other girls who suffered from the experiments?" "With proper treatment, yes. Your case could become the basis for developing new therapy methods." Min-ju decided to use her pregnancy as proof that the consequences of childhood trauma could be overcome. She wrote an article for a medical journal where she described her case in detail and the possibilities of treating women who suffered from hormonal experiments in childhood. Min-ju's daughter was born on September 15th, exactly 40 years after that terrible night at the Hope Orphanage. The girl was named Kang So-yeon, meaning bright hope. The birth went without complications. When Min-ju first held her daughter in her arms, she felt the circle closing. Her mother had saved her from the orphanage, she herself saved other children, and now she had her own daughter who would grow up in safety and love. "Hello, little one," she whispered to the newborn. "Your grandmother was a hero. You'll grow up knowing that women can change the world." Jin-soo entered the room with a bouquet of flowers and a beaming smile. "How is our princess?" "Wonderful. She's strong, like her grandmother." "And like her mother," he added, kissing his wife on the forehead. That same day they were visited by Lee Seung-ja. Nurses from the nursing home brought her to see her great-granddaughter. Despite her dementia, she immediately understood who she was holding. She whispered, rocking the baby. "You are our hope. You are proof that good conquers evil." 5 years passed. The Hope for Children Center became one of Korea's most respected children's institutions. During this time, hundreds of girls had passed through it, many of whom found adoptive families or received education and became independent. Min-ju continued working as the center's director, combining this with raising her daughter. So he grew up surrounded by children from the center and from an early age understood the importance of helping those in need. "Mom," she asked once when she was 4 years old, "why do some children live without parents?" "Because life is sometimes unfair, little one. But we can make it more fair by helping these children. And I'll help too when I grow up?" "If you want to. But the most important thing is to be a kind person and protect those who are weaker than you." That same year, Min-ju received a state award for her contribution to protecting children's rights. At the award ceremony, she said, "This award doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my mother Lee Seung-ja, who risked her life to save children. It belongs to all women who fight for justice, even when it seems they have no chance of victory." Lee Seung-ja died quietly in her sleep at the age of 77. Min-ju held her hand in her final minutes. Before death, the old woman's consciousness cleared one last time. "Min-ju," she whispered, "I'm proud of you. You did what I couldn't, you stopped the evil. Mom, you stopped it too. You saved me and other children." "No, daughter. I only began. And you finished. Now children are safe." The funeral was modest, but many people came: center staff, girls Min-ju had helped, journalists, human rights activists. "She was a true hero," Kim Tae-hyun said in his eulogy. "A simple nurse who put children's lives above her own safety." After the funeral, Min-ju and her daughter went to the grave. So he placed a bouquet of white flowers on it. "Is grandmother in heaven now?" the girl asked. "Yes, little one. And she's watching us from there." "And she's proud of us?" "Very proud. Because we're continuing her work." 10 years had passed since the opening of the Hope for Children Center. Min-ju was 52 years old, but she wasn't thinking about retirement. Work had become the meaning of her life. Over these years, the center had grown into an entire network of institutions throughout the country. The model Min-ju had developed was recognized by international organizations and implemented in other countries. So he was 10 years old, and she already knew firmly that she wanted to become a doctor, like her mother. "I'll treat children who are hurt by adults," she said. "And no one will ever harm them again." One spring day, a young girl of about 18 came to Min-ju's office. "Dr. Kang," she said, "my name is Park Ji-min. I was one of the first girls at your center. Do you remember me?" Min-ju looked at her carefully and smiled. "Of course I remember. You came to us at 7 years old. You were beaten at the previous orphanage." "Yes. And now I've been accepted to medical university. I want to become a child psychologist and work with traumatized children." "That's wonderful, Ji-min. I wanted to thank you. You saved my life. If not for your center, I would never have believed I could achieve anything." After the girl left, Min-ju thought about the path she had traveled. 40 years ago, her biological mother saved her from a burning orphanage. 20 years ago, she herself began saving other children. Now these children had grown up and become saviors themselves. The circle had closed. The evil that began at the Hope Orphanage was not simply stopped, it was transformed into good. In the evening, at home, when So-hee was doing homework and Jin-soo was reading medical journals, Min-ju went out on the balcony and looked at the stars. "Mom," she whispered, addressing the sky, "we did it. We changed the world. At least for those children we were able to help." The next day, a new girl arrived at the center, 6-year-old Kim Min-ju, who was taken from a family where she was abused. She was frightened, withdrawn, didn't want to talk to anyone. Min-ju sat next to her on the center's playground. "Hello, Min-ju," she said gently. "My name is Aunt Min-ju. I was also once a little girl who was very scared." "Were you scared too?" the girl asked quietly. "Yes. But you know what? The fear went away when I realized there were people who wanted to help me. And now I help other children, like you. And I can help others too?" "You definitely can. When you grow up, you'll become a strong and kind woman. And maybe you'll save children too." Min-ju smiled for the first time in a long while. And in that smile, Min-ju saw the future, bright, full of hope, where every saved child would become a savior for others. Where the pain of the past would transform into strength, and trauma into wisdom. Her biological mother was right, women really could change the world. One saved child at a time. Such was the story of Dr. Kang Min-ju, a woman who proved that even the darkest secret could become a source of light, if you had the courage to reveal it.